Hey guys, hi Angie. There's the normal crew showing up.
How's it going, guys?
Good, Brenton. How's it going with you?
Snow day,
Yeah. It's a good class this morning, huh?
Yeah, it wasn't bad at all. Got a lot of information from him. Guy's highly intelligent.
Yeah, he knows a thing or two.
And then on top of that, a thing or two, right?
Yeah. Hey Sid, is Cora up? Before we get started, let me see.
She's not up right now. She's actually getting a bath.
Go wake her up or go get
She's in the bath. I'll have to show you next time.
Should be a requirement for you to log on. Hey Kim.
Hello. Hello, everyone.
Hi Sherry.
Good to see everybody.
See, we got DL on. Nate's back. The boss is checking in, Eric.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Hi, Kim, Angie, Dallas, Brenton, Sydney. How are you guys? Sherry, DL.
Doing
Chilling, Ed. We're chilling.
Good. Nice to see you guys. Was everybody on that class today? Was that incredible or what?
That was awesome. I was very impressed. That was really good. Really good.
Good info. I like that we have professionals like that, so we don't have to know it all. But boy, we need to alert our clients to what can go wrong in this industry that wasn't even a thing a month ago, right? I mean, that's a big thing, is just protecting them from what they don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. It's just interesting that you're always trying to battle against, things that could go wrong and things that could come up. But when you hear Josh say they might do a double verbal verification of employment even on the last day of,
Yeah.
I've never heard of that before.
Talk about sweating it till the end.
Yeah. It's like, you mean you just did one 3 days ago and you're going to do another one? You're going to do one 3 days after recording too?
Well, and what it is saying is the things that were true last week aren't true anymore.
So true. Yeah.
Arlene, Taylor, welcome.
Hey, Tyler. Arlene, hi.
Hi.
We almost could have split that into two separate ones, right? With the mortgage crisis information, and then we jumped into the social media stuff. And to our text earlier today, or maybe we'll do a part two. I don't know how soon we'll do it, but there was obviously a lot of information left on the table. I felt had to share.
Yeah, it's interesting because it makes it a little more challenging to have topics when you're not meeting in person too. So, because not every instructor is going to be set up as well as someone like Josh to do, trainings online. So.
Right. there's a lot of people pivoting and trying to get used to it and
Mhm.
trying to navigate the new norm, right?
Yes. Yeah.
We'll actually talk about a little bit of that tonight, for sure.
Well, I guess we're kind of on that time. We get the late stragglers coming in, so I think we've given them enough time. How was everybody tonight?
Doing good.
Good. Hey, Jeff, can you guys see my screen?
Yep.
I just wanted to make mention of that post that you shared earlier today. We talked about it on the class. The most influential video marketer in our industry by BombBomb, Kyle Whistle. So this is actually, I wanted to make sure everybody was aware of this. Anybody outside of EXP can join in on this, because it is actually on Brent Gove's Facebook page. So you can see that link, facebook.com to Brent Gove. And I think it's going to be a really cool event, and it's really a really good thing for people to be thinking about right now. And I've got some really good BombBomb videos sent to me. And if you don't know what they are, definitely come check this out, because if you're like, I think the first one that I ever saw, Jeff, was actually from Matt Ashby, or maybe it was Patrick Ashby up in Canada with EXP.
Really?
And it's interesting, is if you guys have got a BombBomb before, it just comes through your email, and you can actually see that it's a video, and it's usually only a minute or two long, but it triggers you want to watch it because it kind of moves like a video, when it pops up. So you're just so tempted to watch it. And it's so much easier to watch a 1 minute video than read even a 1 minute email. So it definitely works. And I think this would be a great class for us to definitely attend.
I learned about BombBomb forever ago and never used it. It's the same adage we hear all the time. Oh, I don't want to do video. I'm not comfortable with video. I think we all got to get over it. Well, I'm talking about myself. It's just like, it's such a great, like you said, they're going to listen to it. Josh, even on my phone, sends me little video text messages instead of a normal text or even a voice text. He'll record himself and send it as a text message. You can't help but watch it. You can't just scroll past it. You can't skim it. You have to watch start to finish if you start it right. So yeah, I think it's something that needs to be adopted for all of us.
Yeah, we should be doing it at any time, in real estate, no matter what. But obviously now we've got to adapt and just get better at things that maybe we wouldn't have been. So I remember, I can't remember who was it that said it, but someone said, I don't like to be on video. I don't like to see myself on video, so I don't do them. And I think it might have been Brent Gove said, well, I got news for you. That's what you look like when you do a video. So if you don't like yourself in video, you don't like yourself in real life too. So just get over it, do your videos, and get out there and let people see it, because you're the only one that is critical of yourself.
It's the same thing with audio, right? It's like, that doesn't sound like me. That's not my voice. My voice is much deeper than that.
Wish that was the case for me. Jeez.
Right.
What's up, Brent? I didn't see you pop on.
We do.
But I just wanted to mention that real quick. But so tonight, I wanted to do something a little different too. It's something I wanted to do for a few weeks or a month or so with Jeff, on kind of how he does things a little bit different. And also Jeff and Lynn both do something different with how they do listings and how they interact with clients. And I'm going to preface this a little bit to kind of give you a little bit of history about myself, and maybe that'll make it a little bit more relevant. But I started in real estate in 2002, in August of 2002. Got my license, and I got started working for a company, Realty Executives, in Midvale, Utah. And I went through the crash course of Mike Ferry, where we get up and we meet at 7:30 in the morning every morning, and we stand up and we yell at each other and chant all these weird sayings. It's like a religion. And if you guys have been in real estate for a while, you probably know what I'm talking about. And then we get on the phone and we call expireds and FSBOs for like 2 hours, and just call right in the same room over the top of each other. And you get hung up on, yelled at, cursed at, and it is just brutal. Like, you're the 27th realtor to call me and it's 8:07 a.m. What is wrong with you, Vic? That's kind of that is how I started my career. So I actually did not make a listing or a sale my entire first, whatever that was, 2002. So from August to the end of the year, didn't make a single sale, didn't get a listing, nothing. And I pretty much decided January 1, I'm going to find something else, because I really hate real estate. I don't like it. It's not fun. And I just couldn't wait to get out of the office every day and do something that I enjoyed. So, but what happened is I got lucky. I had a friend of mine who was in a little bit of trouble, and she called me and said, Eric, I heard you got into real estate. Could you look into helping me out? I'm like 4 or 5 months behind on my mortgage, and I don't know what to do. Can you help me maybe sell my house or tell me what to do? Do you know anything about short sales? And I said, yeah, of course I do. And then I hung up and called my broker and said, hey, what's a short sale? Can you help me? Right? So I ended up listing that property, and then I actually double-sided it. I sold it to my girlfriend's neighbor at the time who did construction, and I just told him about it. And I ended up getting a full 5% because it's a short sale. So I got the full 5% commission on that January of 2003. And it got me to fall in love with real estate and, you know, keep me in the business. And I kept going. But what I decided when I did that, had that closing, is I had called hundreds and hundreds of people that I'd been hung up on, and I got nowhere. And I got a phone call out of the blue that was my SOI that turned into a really nice deal that I really enjoyed. And I realized I love real estate. It was just, I hated the approach I was using. And some of that is okay with, you know, some people love doing the Mike Ferry, and I'm not knocking that Mike Ferry. It just wasn't for me, and I just didn't enjoy it. So what I learned was there's different ways to do real estate, and we can always be improving and doing things different to do it. So I took a whole different path in 2003 and became a really, you know, solid buyer's agent, found different ways to find leads. I never called another expired or FSBO again since 2003. I don't necessarily recommend against it. That's what I chose not to do. 2003, I was rookie of the year with my company. We had 400 agents. So it just, doing something different just kind of, it spurred and changed my career direction completely by going against the grain of my own office. So the reason I bring all that up is because that was 17 years ago. I can't believe it. It's a long time ago.
Wow.
And every opportunity I get, I try to improve and make changes. And I'm not too proud to say that I can improve. And I've heard other people mention about EXP. The only reason a realtor or an agent wouldn't come to EXP is because of ego, right? Maybe they have their own brokerage, etc. If you can let go of your ego and say, I can learn something new, even if you have experience, and you will become better and more successful. And that's what I really have enjoyed the last nearly in a year working with Jeff and Lynn. It's reminded me that even though I've been doing this for a long time, I can still improve and I can get better. So ever since I've been working with Jeff, I've actually changed some things, Jeff and Lynn, how I do listings, how I work with buyers and sellers, both, some of the systems that I use. And I just wanted to, even though I've got a lot of experience and behind me, I'm not too proud to say that I've really taken a step forward and improved my business. And I'm proud of that I can be transparent and just say, look, I can improve as well. So what I wanted to do tonight is kind of talk maybe almost like an interview of Jeff and talk a little bit about how he does listings and compared to other agents. And I'm going to let Jeff kind of mention that, because you kind of talk about how other agents do listings versus how you do them. It's almost part of your listing appointment, really.
Yep.
But I wanted to take it from someone that's a referral, Jeff. So not someone that you've sold a house to before, or that you've worked with before, but a referral from another home buyer or home seller that you've worked with in the past hands you over a referral. You don't know them at all. What's the first thing that you do when you get that call from that potential seller?
Well, when I get the referral, the first thing I do is obviously accept the referral, see what I can find out about the person that's being referred to me. And it's just kind of like the lead generation stuff we've been, not lead generation, but the stuff we've been talking about with RiFri on Fridays, right? Get a warm connection and make that, hey, our mutual friend Mark gave me your number. I'm calling you because of. So when you call somebody to set up an appointment, to do a listing appointment for somebody that's referred to you, it's a completely different phone call than what you were talking about with the Ferry organization, right? Where you're trying to meet somebody new, interrupt their day, convince them that you're somebody that they should talk to, and try and set the appointment. The appointment's a given when it's a referral. You're just calling to figure out when is best to set that appointment. So that's the first connection, is just simply calling them and acknowledging who gave us the referral, having some small talk about that, and setting the appointment.
Perfect. So when you're preparing for that appointment, you go ahead and pull a bunch of comps, right? And look around at the neighborhood and try to figure out the value of the house before you go in and visit with that potential seller, right?
That's funny, because that's what most people do. And I don't do any of that. I don't do any preliminary homework. I don't look up the home in some cases, other than to find out where it's located. I might look at the neighborhood just to see what, maybe what the neighborhood's like, the price range of the home, the type of individual that I'm going to be talking to, right? If I'm going to Hoffman Heights in Kearns, it's going to be a little bit different than if I'm going up to Draper Heights.
Yeah.
Right. And so I just, that way I know who I'm going to talk to. Not that I really change anything, but I just feel a little bit more like I'm not walking in blind. But as far as preparation, first, let me ask, on the call, how many people on the call, you can unmute yourself and say, or put in the chat or whatever, have never done a listing presentation?
I have not done one.
I haven't done one either.
Anybody else that has never done one? DL?
I haven't done any.
Okay.
Neither have I. You know that for me.
I know Tyler has. Jake, what about you?
Nope, none for me.
Okay, so that'll be a little bit different maybe on how I make comparisons based on your training and your background, right? And what you're used to doing. Because a lot of times when I'm talking to Eric or I'm talking to somebody about what I do, it's contrarian. It's different than what they've been taught. Eric mentioned Mike Ferry, because they teach scripts, they teach a process, it's coachable. They can say, do this, you'll get this results. Do it this many times, you're going to convert this many people. It's a complete numbers game, right? Let's see who's in the chat here. It says, so let's just go there, Eric, on what most people are taught to do. You brought that up almost sarcastically, because you knew I didn't do that. And it's kind of funny, because I didn't really realize what I did until I started literally meeting with you guys and answering questions and helping people to be better. I had to articulate what I did. And let me put that into context. When I was at Keller Williams, I got asked to do a listing presentation for the realtors in my Keller Williams office once. And I had to tell the team leader, I don't have one. And at the time she said, well, then that's your listing agreement. And I didn't really know what she meant, because I never thought about what I did as a presentation. It's almost the anti-presentation, right? So those of you that have never done a listing presentation, as you take courses, as you take classes, keep in mind what Eric says. Be open to learn, but also cherry pick what fits with your personality. Because there's an organization or a coach that says this is the way it's done, doesn't mean that's the way DL has to do it, or Kim. That doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to be successful if you do it differently. Does that make sense? So as I think back on how I developed my listing presentation, it really goes back to my investing days where I would go to people's home to find out what they needed, right? I didn't really change things when I went on a listing appointment. My whole goal is to find out what they wanted. What was their objective? What was their goal? You have to ask a lot of questions. Eric, are you asking a question? Oh, sorry, he's just not unmuted. So when Eric says, do you do a lot of research and a lot of comps? The typical listing presentation is almost like a flip chart. It's almost like in fact, I saw somebody on Workplace share one at EXP today that just made me, because it was the same thing, right? It's about your brokerage. It's about the stats. It's about the comps. When you go in there with a taught model and you're going through the same steps that everybody else does, how do you differentiate yourself? How do you stand apart? So Eric, I'm getting off topic here. Get me back.
No, I think that's perfect, because the reason I really wanted to bring this topic up is because every time I've done listing presentations for however many years, it's been, I don't know how to describe it, but you know, when you're sitting in the car and your appointment's in 3 minutes, you're prepared, you've done all this, you've never met this person before, and you just get that pit in the bottom of your stomach and you're like, ugh, I hope I do a good job. I hope I get this. I hope I win this listing, you know, and
you're nervous.
It's an uncomfortable feeling. And I've always been uncomfortable doing that. As opposed to when I work with buyers, I jump out of the car and I'm like, let's go shopping. Let's go look at houses. This is fun. I've always loved being a buyer's agent. But on the listing side, I've always had that pit in my stomach. And the reason I kind of told my story at the beginning is because just doing something different can open up how much more comfortable you can be and how much more success you can have doing something. Like going to a listing appointment right now, it's not a presentation for me. It's more of like a fact finder or a meet and greet kind of thing, or you're meeting the potential client. You're getting to know what they, like you said, Jeff, what they have and what their needs are. And there's no expectation, and there's no, I'm not going in there trying to get a listing. And that's one thing that you mentioned to me, Jeff, before, is you say, one of the first things you tell people is, I didn't even bring a listing presentation or a listing agreement with me. We're not listing your house tonight. And it just kind of puts people at ease. But what I found, Jeff, is like, I was thinking to myself when I first started doing this is, oh, that's great. That's going to put them at ease. But what it actually did was put me at ease.
Yep, for sure.
Because now I relaxed, because there was no pressure and no expectation on their part. We could both just relax, and it made it so much easier. And I could really, you know, go in there and you're kind of flying blind in a way. But how can I tell you how much your house is worth until I've seen it?
Well, which is a good thing to fly blind, right? You have no expectations. You don't have any preconceived plan. That nervousness you talk about comes from, oh crap, I hope I say the right thing.
Yeah.
Like, for example, I did a 3-way call with somebody about EXP with Sydney, and we had quite a few conversations on what she thought we should say. And I said, we have to just ask the first question and see how the conversation goes. You can't plan out everything. So to what you were just talking about, Eric, it's so true how it affects you, right? In your preparation, your nervousness, it takes that away. But the objective is to make the seller feel that way. So when you walk in their home and you say, hey, I'm not here today to get a listing agreement signed. I'm not here to tell you what your home is worth. I'm here, this is a discovery meeting, okay? I'm here to gather information. So what I want to do is just find out why you're selling. I want you to walk around the home. Let's go around the outside and the inside and show me the home. And like you said, Eric, I mean, that's literally the verbiage I use. It's like, how can I show up with comps when I've never seen your house before. Now, most people would think, well, you can do comps, comparables, right? Same age, same style, same area, all the square footage, those kind of things are comparable, right? But that's not the case. You have to think differently and you have to talk differently to the sellers, is because you're selling a product that is not exactly like any other comparable. And that home, you could be putting it on the market the way you're seeing it right now with the 6 kids, you know, toys and clutter and everything around. That could be the product you're putting on the home. Or you could go through the process that we'll get into and talk about and merchandise the home and put a product on the home that is like a model home, right, Eric?
Yep.
So that's the conversation with the seller is, I don't want you to have any expectations on how this is going to go. I'm not here to try and slide a contract across the table. And literally when you do that, Eric, I can see in the faces, those that have already had a conversation with another agent where that contract's been slid across the table just in that fashion and says, let's do the right thing. Let's sign the contract. And so I just call out the tactics that are being taught in other things, and they come prepared. Most agents won't go around the house first. They're going to go straight to the kitchen table. They're going to go straight to the living room, and they're going to start talking about who? Them. This is how great I am. This is why I'm at this brokerage. Their stats are better than other. We sell more homes. We sell them faster. We got the greatest marketing plan. We've got backing of international, blah, 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 blah. The seller doesn't care about any of that. They really don't. So when you start talking about their needs, okay, your job is to protect your client. And you need to convey that to them. I'm here to protect you through the transaction, but also to help you net the most money. But most agents are going to say the same thing, right? Most agents are going to say, I can sell your house faster and for top dollar. That's like a tag phrase in real estate. I can sell your house faster and for more money. But what they really do differently isn't different. It's the same stuff all the agents do. So that's huge, Eric. As you walk in the home and you put them at ease, they realize they're not going to be asked to sign anything. The salesman that just showed up their door is now just a person. You're walking around their home. Show me your home, and you're making comments along the way about what you do in your process.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you want me to just keep going on just a walkthrough when we get to the house, or do you have specific questions that you want to?
Yeah, one thing I was going to bring up too is that when I was thinking about this earlier, I was trying to really kind of narrow down and analyze why I've always had such a negative thing about listings emotionally, and how much I've loved working with buyers. And one thing that I was thinking is, and why I switched, because now I love both. And it's because of the approach you and Lynn use, and it's just changed how I do listing. And it's really exciting. It's fun because I've never really enjoyed it before, and now I do. So I was like, what is it that is so different that would make me like something that I dreaded before? And what is funny is I was thinking, well, why do I like working with buyers? It's like, well, there's no expectation. We just go out and look at houses. I don't know if the house is going to be crap or it's going to be amazing. I have no idea. I don't know if the roof's falling in or if there's going to be 10 offers on it. What am I doing? I'm just going in and having a good time, looking at houses, pointing out things that I know about neighborhoods or homes. But when that buyer says, I love this house, I want to put an offer in on it, what I've always done is say, let me get back to you in about an hour or two. I'm going to go research it, and I'm going to see what's going on in the neighborhood. I'm going to call you with a value. Then we're going to do an offer. I never do the offer right then, right? I send it to him for a DocuSign or a DigiSign, right, like in a couple hours after I call him and say, this is what I found out about the house. So it's actually, I didn't have any pressure on me to put a price on that house immediately. I didn't have to write an offer immediately. I'm just doing all the fun stuff. And then later I do the research after I'm done meeting with them.
But Eric, let's back up just a little bit. I want to finish that, but back up just a little bit. Before you do that, you've set the expectations, right? Your buyer knows that you're not going to comp every house that we're going to go see. Well, what's it worth, right? you're going to go see them first, and you're going to put in the effort and the work on the ones that they actually fall in love with. So the expectations are set. That's a similar thing with the sellers. You go in and set the expectations first.
That's
So
true.
doing that, they already knew that's what was going to happen. That's what makes it so easy, right?
Yeah, but it's kind of interesting because I've really turned my listings into the same way I treat my buyers now. Because before, what I do is I do all the preparation, just like because I was taught that way from Mike Ferry and everyone else in the industry. I mean, the majority prepare, and then you come in with a bang and go get that listing. But now I've just reversed it, and I'm kind of doing what I'm doing with buyers.
Yep.
Same thing. I'm not expecting to get a listing or write an offer on that first meeting. Do my research later. Just do some fact finding and find out what they want, and learn about the house as I go. So the whole pressure of the listing piece is gone, which makes me enjoy it just like I do buyers now. So
Think of it this way too. You go in there with the ease as if you were going over to Uncle John's house.
Yeah.
Uncle Nate's house.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going over there to find out why they're selling, what their expectations are. Then you're going to kind of explain to, okay, this is how I do things. Okay. And you're going to talk differently when you don't have pressure of thinking about what you should say, overcoming objections. I hate that one. You don't need to overcome objections. You set expectations. Okay. There shouldn't be objections if you set the proper expectations. What are they going to object to? Right. So to what you were saying, I think that's a good point, is just that comfort of it, of going in like it's a family member.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And the other thing too is that I really like about the way you and I do listing presentations. We edify our team. We talk about other people, not us. And we talk about our home stagers. We talk about our photographers, our team, our, lending and our title, the people that back us up. We have the best team to help us in the industry. And it's really easy to brag about other people instead of yourself. So I do that with my team, and it feels really comfortable. But one thing that I don't know, Jeff, is what you personally do. Like when you walk around a house for the first time, before you start edifying your team, what are you discussing with a potential seller as you walk through the house for the first time? Or maybe just start at the beginning. Like when you walk through the front door and you meet them, do you immediately go walk through the house after you have a few chit chat minutes, or what's your usual normal process?
I don't set aside chit chat minutes, because that can just happen on the walkthrough, right? So I get right about it. I walk in there, we say our highs, we may talk about the mutual person that we know that referred me or whatever, a little bit of small talk, but not much. But I will literally say, we can talk while we're walking around the house, and then I set those expectations, because I didn't bring comparables today. I didn't bring a listing agreement. This is a discovery meeting for me, okay? I'm gonna walk away with information that I don't have yet. So let's just walk around, show me the house. They love showing you their house. They love showing you the remodel stuff they've done. They love showing you the paint job they did, or whatever it is, the landscaping. I walk around the outside and the inside of the house. And while we're walking around the house is where I have conversations. And there's no specific order. So guys, just kind of think of the end result you're trying to get to your client. There's a lot of different things you're going to talk about, right? The main thing is, I want to present your home in the best light possible to get you the most money. So we're going to walk around. I'm going to take some notes, but it's not really going to be just my recommendations, because to what you said, Eric, I have a team, and on my team, I have designers. They're professionals at what they do. So part of what I'm going to do, as soon as we're done here, I'll find out what your schedule is, and I'm going to set a design consult and have one of my designers come through the house. And they're going to help you merchandise your house. If it's lived in, right, you're not really using words like staging, unless you're using it in the context, we're going to help you stage your home with your own stuff. Okay. So I use the phrase a lot, think like a model, think like a model home. Okay. When you go through a model home, nobody lives there, right? You walk in, nobody lives there, but it feels fantastic. Buyers buy emotionally. So that's part of the conversation. We're just having conversation with the seller, and I'm saying, we want the buyers to be emotional, but I need you not to be an emotional. My background is an investor, or you guys can all say, I work with a team that has investors on it. We need you to think like an investor. I need you to start thinking of ROI. like return on your investment. If you can do A, B, and C, and I can show you how we can sell your house for $10,000 or $20,000 more, then you need to make the decision, is it worth doing A, B, and C, right? Because when you're giving somebody a valuation, there is no list price, okay? It's not that you're trying to be vague, but when you're talking to your sellers, you need to let them know that there's a range. A home has a range of value, a low to a high. It's a subjective opinion of value, even in regards to an appraiser doing an appraisal, right? The appraisal is trying to justify the value for the lender. We're trying to entice emotionally a high offer from the buyer because they want this house. So part of that conversation is, Mr. Seller, as we're walking through here, I might point out some things. There's no offense here. I have a whole list of honeydew projects on my own home that need to be done. But now it's time to do them if you want to get the return by doing those projects. So if I point something out, I don't mean to be offensive that wall needs to be repaired and painted. I just want the buyer to not put it on their punch list, okay? So if you guys have worked with buyers, take your experience from the comments your buyers make when you take them through houses. That literally becomes your listing presentation, right, Eric? Your buyer walk in and they say, oh my gosh, does anybody live here? I didn't know this was a vacant house. And it looks like it's staged, right? When your buyers go into the kitchen and they open the fridge to see if there's food in the fridge, that's a good thing. They're trying to determine if somebody actually lives here because it looks that good, right? They don't try and make the house lived in, right? Want the pile of clothes in the laundry room because it makes it look lived in and like a real house. You need your buyers to picture themselves living in the house. So when you hear comments from your buyers like that, that becomes your listing presentation, okay? Seller, think like a model home. I want your house to look as close to a model home as we can. That means you're moving. You've lived here for 10 years. You got a lot of shit. We got to start boxing it up. Rent a pod, get a storage unit, all that stuff you don't need while we're preparing for market. That's part of it, right? Just box up all that stuff you don't need. Think of what you need to have in the home, not versus what you're just used to having in the home. And let's get rid of everything else. Let's make it minimalistic. And that's where your designer comes in too, right? As I always do that design consult and I put them at ease too. I said, that's something I pay for. It's part of my service. That's a pretty good hook, Eric. When you go to a listing appointment, you don't even have the listing yet. And before you leave, you've scheduled an appointment with your designer that you've told them you're going to pay for to come and help them get their house ready for sale. There's not going to be another, 1 in 100 agents that's going to do that unless they're on our team.
Right.
And so now you're just saying, you're not saying, this is what I do, I'm so great, this is my process, here's my stats. You're just saying, you're saying, this is what I do, but we're going to do this because. So the next thing after I leave is we're going to have a design consult. I'm going to hire a professional photographer. Now there's something new as of the last month we got to add in, right? As far as setting expectations with this damn virus. My talk used to be, I have a plan. I list on Thursday afternoons for a reason because hot sheets reset on Friday. People, you look at the stats of views of property. Most people view properties Friday afternoon and Saturday. So I want my hot sheets hitting everybody fresh on Friday. And I tell them that I have a plan. So it's not about my comps and the fact that I'm with Keller Williams or Remax or whatever. It's like, this is how I do this for a reason because it gets you top dollar, right? So when I'm talking about that, I used to say, my goal is to get as many people through this house that first weekend as possible. Would that be a smart thing to say today? That we're going to send as many people as possible through their house?
Probably no.
Probably not a good idea. So the same concept though, now we have to start taking things to virtual. You need to say, my job is to protect you, right? So you can say that what I used to try and get as many people through the house as possible that first weekend, because I literally would say, I want them bumping into each other. This is pre-virus talk, right? But I want them bumping into each other. I want to create competition and scarcity. And I want that person that was 80% sold on that house to see all the other people in the house and now they want it, right? So we're having those kind of conversations. So now my conversation is, of those 100 people I hope to get through your home, we're going to present it online in a way to where we get an offer from the top 3 without them coming into your home, if that makes the most sense for you, to protect you so you're safe and you feel that you're not putting your family at risk, right? So today the language is going to change a little bit. You're going to talk about 3D tours. You're going to talk about accepting an offer subject to inspecting the property, where I would never take a blind offer before. If you haven't seen it, I know you haven't seen it, and I'm not going to accept your offer and then have your buyer go and say, it's not quite what I thought it was. And then you're going to rescind your offer. So this day and age, it's a little bit different. So again, it goes back to setting those expectations, right? We're going to do it this way because of. So there's things, you learned it today. If you were on the Lunch and Learn today, there's things going on in this industry today that didn't exist before. So you also have to set those expectations by telling them how things are different. You need to tell them how much more effort and how difficult it's going to be for you to vet out the buyer that puts the offer on their house. Because of some of the things you learned today, right? You learned that the lender could be pulling their job records the day of closing. The seller's not going to know that. The seller's not going to know all these things that they don't know because they're not in the business. So when you say, hey, this, and this could go wrong. And so we need to be prepared for that when it happens. It's no different than when you set their expectations that a buyer may need closing costs, right? Because they're thinking, I'm going to sell my house for 306%. So now they're calculating their net. If you haven't set the expectation that a buyer might ask for 3% is kind of high these days, but say a couple percent in closing costs, they're going to be caught off guard when you bring them an offer that's asking for closing costs, right? So you got to set that expectations, and you have to bring it up before it's a concern so that they know that you're going to address it. Because you bring up 50 things on a listing consult that they hadn't thought of, they're going, holy shit, I need this guy. I need somebody to protect me through this because I didn't think of that, I didn't think of that, I didn't think of this. So setting those expectations, that's your job. This is what you do for a living. The seller has maybe sold 2 houses in their life. Who knows? But they don't have the same experience, and they certainly don't know what's going on in the industry. So what's another thing you got to bring up? Not just closing costs with an offer, but look at this new COVID-19 addendum we have. Have you guys looked at the new COVID-19 addendum? I mean, it has a couple of conditions on there that are automatic extensions, right? If they can't get in the house to do the inspection and do their due diligence, it's automatically extended by how many days they couldn't get in the house. If the appraiser can't get in the house for the same reason, it's automatically extended. But the part I don't like about it is settlement can be extended for 30 days on or before the settlement date that's in the offer. So you could get to the day of closing and the buyer has the right to extend it for 30 days. You know,
That's horrible.
you don't think your seller's going to want to know that before it happens?
Yeah, that's a big deal.
It's a big deal, and it's a big deal for your buyers because you're talking about rate locks and you're talking about other things with buyers, but turn that around on the sellers and their expectations, right? You're going to protect your buyers because you're going to say, hey, I got to protect your earnest money. But if you haven't set up your buyer to realize that their job employment could be, Eric, you were talking about one of your sellers right now that took a new job. But let's say your buyer's in a situation where they're check his job. Oh, well, yours is a seller and a buyer. So it is the buyer situation on John that you were telling me about. He wants to change jobs and he has a great job offer, but he got qualified based on certain things that he submitted to the lender, and that's the way you should finish it out. So knowing that, setting that expectation, hey seller, this could happen. This is why when we get a pre-approval from your lender, traditionally I'm going to call the lender, I'm going to vet them out. I'm going to ask him the right questions so I can tell if he's really done a full pre-approval or if it's just been an application. And I'm going to see how professional he is. And I'm going to ask what title the company they're using. I'm going to do that homework for you. But now you have to also add another layer in there, right? You have to let them know that I can't take the word from their lender. He may not be as educated as mine. So now I'm going to go that extra step we talked about in the class today, right? I'm going to get the opinion. My lender might be calling their lender, or I'm at least going to be running it by and asking the right questions to my lender who I know and trust, and I can take their expectations or take what they're saying as a good expectation. So again, those are things that a seller's not typically going to have a discussion with an agent that's going to the listing appointment to get the listing, secure the contract, and set a sales date. If they're not talking about preparing the home for the market and preparing the seller for the expectations, you're going to be the only one talking that way. And I went over this with Jake Jake Graves before he went on a listing appointment. I think it was a week ago or something like that. And he said to me, he says, wow, when I wanted to find out what your listing presentation, I didn't expect it to be like this. This is so different, but I like it. And I said to him, that's exactly what you want your seller to say. You want your seller to say, this is so different than what I thought was going to happen when you came here, because you're talking about things that aren't typically talked about by most real estate agents because they're not taught to most real estate agents. Right, Eric? The Tom Ferry, they didn't talk to you about, you know, setting expectations. They talked to you about closing the deal, getting the contract signed, right? That was the objective. And here's the scripts to get that. If they have this objection, here's how you overcome that objection. And it wasn't geared around, let's do what's best for you, seller.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Well, you know, what's interesting is it's been 17 years since I got introduced to Mike Ferry when I started real estate. If I went out and did a Mike Ferry presentation with a PowerPoint and slid somebody a contract right now and just show them all the comps at the kitchen table without even looking at the house and did absolutely everything the way I was taught to do it. I've been doing this a long time and I've sold plenty of homes and have a lot of knowledge and experience. I guarantee that if there were 10 Mike Ferry students, including me, that went and gave a presentation to that same seller, I bet 8 out of 10 of those agents would kick my butt. They do a better job because I have not practiced that presentation. So if you think about, I like to thought of kind of as new agents, you're thinking, I need to practice this. I need to work on this. I need to get better at, you know, how I do my presentation. How am I going to present myself in a listing presentation? It's like, you're going to be going up against agents that have been doing this for 30, 40 years that are so smooth and maybe even a little greasy, right? About how good they are on their presentation. So if you're trying to win out somebody that's been doing PowerPoint presentations and Mike Ferry presentations, you're doing it exactly like they are, you're probably never going to get very many of those listings unless you have a really personal relationship with them. So don't try to beat them out doing what they've been doing forever. Do you, be unique. And that's what's really excited me about this, changing a lot of my approach. And Jeff, I've since 2003, I've never gone after listings. I've been more of a referring agent and worked with a lot of buyers. Most of the listings that I received were past client buyers or referrals. Mm-hmm. So it's just never been a major focus of mine, but I enjoy it a lot more now and I'm open to it. And I'm actually getting more clients because I'm open to it.
I agree. And the sellers are, like we talked about before, are just as nervous as you are. Mm-hmm. They have uncertainties, especially today, right? They have a lot of uncertainties on how this is going to go down. So the conversation, when it comes about those expectations, every time you bring up something they haven't thought about, they're going to feel more comfortable. Here's another one. When you ask them, well, when you sell this house, where are you moving? Do you already have a place where you're going to go? Or are you going to rent for a little while? And they say, they could say anything, right? So you don't have an answer for that yet. You need to find out what they're going to do. They could say, well, we're thinking about building, so we're going to move in with my parents for a little while. So that's great, right? But if they say, well, we need to buy another house, so we thought we'd get this one under contract first so that we could go buy another house. Here's another expectation to set, right? You want to help them make that as seamless as possible. The worst case scenario is, in their mind, is they have to move twice. They have to sell this house, move into an apartment, find another house, move into that one. So when you at least lay the expectations, hey, when we get an offer, it could be exactly the price we're looking for, but we're also concerned about the terms. So if we're going to go under contract with this buyer, I'm going to find out what their flexibility is to conform to what your needs are. You're the seller. It's not just about the price. The buyer might say, hey, I gave them exactly what they wanted. But if you guys are like me, when I put in an offer, or before I put in an offer, I always call the seller's agent. I always call them before and say, hey, what can you tell me about the seller's situation that might help me craft a better offer? And what I mean by that is, have they already found the house they're going to move to, or do they need a little bit of time? Do they need some flexibility there? Do they need to move quickly, or would they rather move in September? Not a lot of agents are making that phone call and saying, tell me what the seller is really looking for as far as terms. I already know what they're asking price-wise. It's on the MLS, right? So what kind of terms are going to make them the happiest? And literally, one of the last offers I closed on, I got over multiple offers because I simply supplied a flexible settlement date addendum with my offer. The listing agent had never even heard of it before. She's been doing real estate a long time too, from what she said, and she's never heard of it. So if you guys that haven't done a lot of transactions haven't heard of it, look it up on the MLS. It's a flexible settlement date addendum. So on your REPC, you're putting a settlement deadline, right? On section 24 of the REPC. Well, you add an addendum that now says on or before that date, or yeah, that date, or whatever, 30 days, 45 days after that, and let the seller decide. Because what that does to the seller, if they want to get under contract, then they want to go shopping for a house, they now know, hey, they just gave me a month sliding scale. So if we find a house and we can move right away, they can close in 21 days. But they also gave me 30 or 45 days in case I haven't found the house. But it's tougher for buyers than sellers right now, right? Would you agree? So the sellers need to know that. So we're going to get your house sold. I'm not worried about that. Are we going to be able to find you the house that you want to move into on the right time frame? So just the talk about going under contract and counter offering the buyer on a time frame that makes the sellers a little bit more comfortable, because nobody likes finite deadlines, right? They accept an offer and they're like, oh crap, we got to be out in 21 days. We don't even know where we're going. Alleviate that from the listing appointment. That's huge. From the listing appointment, you're talking about how you're going to negotiate their offer. Okay. Another thing you might want to talk about is how you're going to make buyers like their house more than the other house. I was talking to our meth cleanup guy, Nate Coombs, the other day about cleanup and decontaminating houses, not just for meth, but for virus, for anything, right? He can go in and he's got the goods and the equipment to decontaminate a house. If he can clean up meth, he can make that free. So that's another thing. Mr. Seller, you're talking to your seller, we might want to ensure the buyer a virus-free house by offering on our purchase price decontamination once you get all your stuff out. You're gonna go in there and decontaminate the home. You gotta be thinking of what things are relevant for this house or for this time and this market that we're in that might make your seller feel more comfortable. That's obviously gonna make a buyer feel more comfortable too, right? And so now that's a perk better than offering a home warranty. That's going to make that buyer think this house is better. So when you're having those conversations, just like the repairs and the punch list, I literally will say, because it's true, when the buyer comes through the house and they start making a punch list, and I'm more buyer heavy to be real. I'm not, as a all listing agent. I work with a lot of buyers, so I listen. And buyers, when they're making their punch list, if they're not handy, if they get to three items on there, they're looking at me and they're saying, let's keep looking. But if they can't put anything on that punch list because that seller has taken care of it beforehand, I mean, this person doesn't even have to sweep when they move in. My buyer's language is a little bit different. They're saying, I don't want to lose this one. This is better than anything we've seen in this price range. I know it's $20,000 more, but I don't have to do anything. They're literally now equating tens of thousands of dollars to convenience. So that's a conversation to have with your seller. I want a buyer to think this way when they see their home, because a buyer is going to say, you know what, I can give them $10,000 more for $47 a month. It's only going to cost me $4,000, and I qualify for more. I'm willing to pay that for this particular house because it's that nice. But to the seller, that's 100% $10,000 net, right? And so that's why you can't determine a price from comps before you even show up to their house, because you don't know what you're going to be putting to market. So I tell them that, I said, after the design consultation, I could do comps now. I could do that now, but if we're not going to market for a month, I'm going to have to redo it anyway. So whatever I see now is irrelevant. Just like Josh was talking about, whatever I told you last week, throw it out the window. It's different. We're in an ever-changing market, right? So set that expectation with your seller too. I could give you a price and it's going to be a range, but I don't know what you're going to do yet. Let's get my designer in here. Let's do the consultation and let's go through the punch list. And let's now talk about the end product we're going to put on the market. Because I'm going to do my part. I'm going to get the designer in here. I'm going to pay for professional photography. And in this market we're in right now, I'm going to pay for a 3D tour, whatever that might be to to show the home, right? I'm going to do that, but I need your help in getting the house ready for market. Because a seller can only control two things. You guys know what that is? Those two things, what are they? It's price and condition. That's the only thing a seller, they can't do the location. They can't change the size of the house. They can only manipulate the price or the condition, right? And one dictates the other. The worse the condition, the lower the price. The better the condition, the higher the price. It's just, I mean, that's common sense. But when you point it out that way, they can do small things that it makes it so the buyer doesn't have to do it, and they're going to be rewarded. I don't agree with a lot of the online things I say. It's like, oh, if you remodel a bathroom, it's going to cost you $5,000 and you won't recoup all of that. Okay. The reason I don't believe with that, because if a buyer has to do it, they're going to think it costs twice what it really does. If a buyer doesn't have to do it, it's done for them and they love it, they're going to give it twice the value. So now it doesn't become, what do the stats say your return on investment is for painting and remodeling and flooring, all this? It's, will the appraiser be able to justify the price I'm going to get for my client because of the condition it is, that's better than the other properties. Does that make sense?
You know, Jeff, it's kind of like when you look at the comparison between buyers and sellers, and like the value of things that the buyer doesn't have to do after they move in. It's kind of like closing costs. It's like, why do buyers ask for $8,000 worth of closing costs? Because they're wrapping that $8,000 into the loan and it costs them $40 a month, but they don't have to write a check for $8,000 when they show up at closing. They look at this, they look at fixing a bathroom, adding a fence, or, you know, making some big repair, or maybe even a roof, things like that are things they have to write a check for. They can't include in the loan. Yep. That's why really nice remodeled homes that show well sell for more money faster. It's because people are qualified for a loan. They're not qualified for a free checking account that has money in it.
Right, right, right.
They've got to get a loan.
You need to use examples like that. You need to explain that mentality to your seller, okay? Because to your point, Eric, just even on closing costs, it's like, wow, if I pay my down payment on my loan and the closing costs, I'm not going to have that much money left in the bank, and I really wanted to put up a fence, or I really wanted to landscape the yard, or whatever. Or basically, I just need some cash reserves because who knows what's going to happen with my job, right?
Yeah.
So when we're working with buyers, we're going in there. The reason they say let's keep looking is because they're saying, well, I love the home, I love the price, but I don't got the money to put on a new roof. I don't really have the money to put in new flooring or to paint it. And these fixtures, these god awful fixtures, I got to replace all the fixtures in the house or whatever, right? So that's why it gets more value, is because it's part of the purchase price and they're looking at their monthly nut, right? I can afford that. It's no difference when somebody goes and buys a car and they pay this outrageous interest rate because they can afford the payment. It's strung out over 7 years instead of 3, but they can afford the payment, right? And so your job representing the seller is to do the best job for them. Not that you're trying to screw over a buyer, but you're trying to put their home in the best light, and all these things come into play. So use those examples. What Eric just brought up is so true. It's like a little bit of a story that sells your methodology. Is like, you know what, if you spend 10 grand, I'm going to get you 30, because I'm going to be at the top of the range instead of the low end of the range. And here's another thing in certain markets, even if they just broke even, but they sold the house on their timeline instead of have it sit on the market, that has value too, right? So it's not always the ROI, it's the needs of the seller. That's why you got to find out if they need to sell it fast, then you got to marry those two things up. You got to marry up condition and price and what's more compelling. If they know they're leaving money on the table, but I can't put the money into it, I got to sell it fast and cheap. Maybe they know they're selling it to an investor. At least you've given them options. The more options you can give them, the more value you have, because a lot of those options they haven't thought of before, like a flexible settlement date. I mean, and what if you had access to money lenders? Maybe they don't have the money, but maybe you could help them line up contractors or lenders that would help. Knowing people that can help them with the services that they can't do goes a long ways. I mean, guys, I've put on roofs, I've put in all new flooring, I've painted whole houses before settlement because I lined everything up. And I'm talking about for my buyer. because the house needed it and the seller didn't do it. I got the discount for my buyer, but then I lined it all up at cost with my contractors to be done before settlement, and my client got the improved equity. My client still put an offer on the unimproved property, but we closed on an improved property. Now, if that seller would have put on the roof and would have put in the flooring and the paint and done those things, then they would have got a lot more than what our end value ended up being. Does that make sense? We can talk about how to structure all of that.
That sounds like a class, right?
It's
Taught to kind of how to do that and how to structure that, because not many agents do that.
Let me just tell you really briefly, okay? And you can use examples like this, and maybe Eric, at some point we need to sit down and brainstorm and maybe make a list of some of these things we're talking about, because I don't have, this is just up in my head, okay, right? But some of these things would be good. Okay, yep, remember that. But here's how it works. Let's say you're buying a $400,000 house and it needs a new roof that's gonna cost $15,000. Well, if you're buying a $400,000 house, let's say you're putting down 10%, right? That's 40 grand, right? You're putting down 10%. Your offer on the earnest money might only have been $5,000. But let's say you do your inspections, you do all this and you love the home, but you really want that new roof. Here's how you present it to the seller. I'm coming from the buyer's perspective now, but it's relevant because you need to use that from the seller, saying if you do this, you get the return. If a buyer needs to do it, they're gonna double the price. Everything's double if you got to do it, but it's half off if the seller did it for you. Does that make sense? Because it's financed, it's done, it's just easy. Convenience has a pretty high price and a high value for a lot of people. So let's say you go, you do your inspections, you're fine with all the other details. Let's just leave all that out of there, but you want that new roof. So you get the bids, 2 or 3, they're welcome to get their own. You do all the work for the seller's agent, meaning I've lined up a contractor that can do the roof prior to settlement. What's their first concern gonna be?
How much is it going to cost them?
Right? What if you don't close? If I had the money to put on a new roof, I would have done it already. So the way you present that is, okay, we put in $5,000 earnest money. The roof's going to cost $15,000. So we'll get through our due diligence. I'll waive all other conditions on the due diligence. Once the appraisal comes in and we've hit our value, now my earnest money's hard, isn't it? At that point, I will raise it to $15,000. And my buyer is willing to do that because he's putting $40,000 down anyway. So now you raise the earnest money that's non-refundable to $15,000, along with the addendum that the roof will be done as per the attached invoice by such and such roofing prior to settlement. And the invoice to be paid by seller out of seller's proceeds at settlement. So you marry the price, the roof, and so that increased earnest money might have a little bit play in the price too, right? Because the buyer wants to finance it, so they're willing to pay $15,000 more so they can get the new roof. So that's going to come into play as well. And sometimes you can get it done for not even full price. It's like, Mr. Seller, you pay half, I'll pay half, type of thing, right? Because we always negotiate condition and due diligence items that we come across during due diligence. But if you make it easy for the seller to just say yes and not have anything to do but walk away with their net check at closing, you're going to win most of the time. So because I've done that on the buyer side so many times, I use that as an example to my seller. When I'm pointing these things out, I'm giving you options, okay? If you don't do these things, it may mean a reduced net amount that you're going to walk away with. But if we can, I mean, you're a professional, right? This is all part of a listing presentation. You're having conversation with how to get them the most money. That's all it is. And so when you're telling them, if the buyer has to do this, they're going to pay less. But if we can find out a way to do it and present a better product to market to where you're going to net more, would that make sense to you? You're going to, if you're doing these things, you're going to give them suggestions in their listing appointment that no other agent is giving them. Because you want them to think like an investor, not like just a home seller. You want them to think of their increasing their rate of return. And even if they say no to everything that you said, you've still given them options that they hadn't thought about. And there's many more too, right? When you ask them why they're selling, some of my clients say, well, because I want to move into a smaller house so I can save up some money to buy rental properties. So that brings up a whole nother conversation with them on selling this house now. What if it's a perfect 4-bedroom, 2-bath home that would make a great rental property. So you guys, we're all part of a team, right? So some of this discovery would say, you know what, I'm going to make a call to Eric. I'm going to brainstorm on this for a little bit. You don't have to have all the answers. Remember, I told you, you go into the listing appointment saying, this is a discovery meeting. I'm gathering information. So when you leave, you don't have to say, here's my game plan. You're going to say, based on everything that we found, I'm going to go to my team on this one. I got so-and-so that's got a little bit more experience in this area. Courtney can come out and do the design consult on Friday. I got her already scheduled before you even leave. I do that a lot. And then I'm going to come back to you with another plan. And so lean on Eric, lean on I, and bring us. I love this stuff. When you gather all the information and find out what the seller's needs are, you can better help them accomplish it if you know what they are, right?
Jeff, that's awesome. You know, the first few years in real estate, I really felt inadequate giving a listing presentation. Just because I just didn't feel like I had everything I needed and all the tools. You're always looking to figure out how to improve and do things better. So you can do a better job for that seller, but so you can get the listing too, because, you know, we're all trying to, you know, make a living doing this, obviously. So I always felt like I needed to be better, and I was ill prepared as much as I prepared. As long as I prepared for a presentation, I just didn't feel like I was ready. Yeah. But kind of what I really is great listening to you, Jeff, but I wanted to give this opportunity to everybody to kind of see that doing a presentation or really, you know, visiting a home seller considering selling in this manner allows all of us to go in and really just talk to the seller, find out what their needs are with no expectations and no pressure. And it allows you to say, I've never done a listing presentation in my life, but I'm going to do a great job today. I can go do my first one without any pressure, because you're coming in and you're saying, I don't have a presentation. I don't have a listing agreement for you to sign. We're not going to put a price on your house today. This is really a fact finding and get to know you and get to know your house meeting. And that's it. And then I'm going to do my research, and you can call Jeff or Eric and help you out with that if you need, right? But you're going to do your research later. So there's zero pressure going into that appointment, which really is what I wanted to convey tonight. It makes it so much easier and really brings down the pressure on both parties. So I appreciate that, Jeff. That's awesome.
I haven't done one before. Even if you still feel like you'll be nervous, it's like, oh, wow, you know, they can go in there and they can bring up all this stuff because they've done it before. If you don't have any expectations and the seller doesn't have any expectations and you're relaxed and you're having conversation, and just keep in mind, and even say this to seller, you know, my job is to do what's best for you. I'm not here to get a listing unless it makes sense for both of us. You know, sometimes we're finding out if we're a good fit to work together, right? So there's nothing wrong with saying that. And they're like, well, wait a minute, you wouldn't want to work with me? you wouldn't want my listing? What are you talking about? It's like, no, you want to make sure you're a good fit together, but that includes the things Eric was just talking about, the fact finding and the discovery. And so if you don't go in there with any preconceived outcome, it's going to be a good outcome, because you're going to ask questions. You're going to tell them, hey, I want to find out what your needs are. My job is to give you what you need. I'm not coming in here to tell you how great my brokerage is. I know you don't care. It doesn't matter what brokerage an agent's with, because you're hiring an individual. In your guys' case, you're getting access to a team of people that work together and collaborate. So it's not just you as a solo agent. And don't be afraid to say that. Even though we're not on a traditional team and you're paying us part of your commission and this and that, other than the mentor agreement that's been worked out with DXP or whatever that might be, we are on your team. My designer is on my team. My lender's on my team. My title, my home inspector, my contractors, those are all people that are on your team. And you know what? You've drafted well and you've got a really good team. And so you're going to rely on them. You have people that do things that they're good at. I got 2 daughters that work for me. One's really great at marketing and working with the tenants and work orders and contractors. The other one does bookkeeping and transaction coordination, right? They work in their strengths. It's no different. So if you don't have it, you're borrowing it from somebody else, right? You guys are fortunate to be in the right place to where it's available to you, and it wasn't promised. And then there's crickets when you need that help, because you will get it. But it's that expectations. It's going to go both ways. The seller's going to feel so much more comfortable talking to you than the guy that they feel is pressuring them. And it goes both ways. The guy that came before you pressured him to get the listing.
Yep.
The guy that's going to come after you, if you're the first one, is going to do all the things that you told him he's going to do. And he's just going to be going, okay, I knew it was going to be like this. I get feedback from my sellers that way. It's like, oh my God, it was exactly like you said. He did the whole with the contract and everything. So it's pretty amazing when you just kind of call that out and then it happens, you take all their power away. Even if they're a Tom Ferry certificate holding alumni, whatever, they do a great listing presentation. The expectations of what they're doing don't have as much value because it's not about the seller. It's not about their needs. It's about that agent that's talking about themselves. So there's no need for you guys to talk about yourself. You know, you want to basically saying, okay, while we're talking around, tell me about the house and tell me about yourself. Tell me about your needs, because that's my job. Tell me about the house, tell me about yourself, and tell me about your needs. And that's your conversation. Just take that.
That is your presentation right there. Those three things. You do the work later, do the research later.
Yep.
Love that. Makes it super simple. You know, I just, you know, I've adjusted and pivoted how I talk to sellers because of what I've learned from you. But kind of, it's kind of interesting because we've gone through a few adjustments and pivots in real estate, and we're going through a really weird time right now. But anyone that says, you know what, once this crap's over and this virus is gone and we move on, then I can get back to the way things used to be. Things never, ever go back to the way they used to be. Lending is completely different from after the lending meltdown that, you know, Jeff and I and a lot of us went through in real estate. We had to pivot, we had to adjust, and it never went back to the same way. It always has some residual changes. So if you're thinking, you know, well, things are going to get back to normal pretty soon, maybe they will to a point, but never will things be exactly the same. It'll always be different. So get used to adjusting and pivoting and embrace the change and embrace saying, okay, I need to get better in an area that I might be uncomfortable with, or I might need to get better in an area that I've never really been attracted to, maybe the online, you know, or marketing, things like that. Yep. So be open to some of those changes because the world and market and real estate is always changing. And I'm grateful that, you know, I've learned some great things from just watching Brent Gove. I got a Brent Gove Resources. I've learned some great things. He's an amazing real estate agent that's sold thousands of houses. You know, so take little pieces from other really good agents and make them your own and pick what you like and make it easier. You know, that's kind of my takeaway, Jeff, that I wanted people to, you know, our agents to kind of get a feel for is make it easier. Don't make it more complicated. You know, everybody's, you know.
Perfect wrap up because I think that's where a lot of agents struggle. A lot of you new agents have been told in your testing prep class, how many agents don't renew their license, right? They just never get it figured out. And it's usually, in my opinion, geared towards doing something that's uncomfortable, doing something that isn't in alignment with either their personality, their ethics, whatever it might be, their morals. They just feel like, this is just sleazy. They beat themselves up every day like you did, Eric, when you were making those over the phone calls. It just wasn't in alignment with who you were. Once you got in alignment, it's like, wow, this is actually kind of fun because I'm doing me.
Yeah.
When you do you, it comes natural and you don't have to feel pressure. You don't have to think of what you're going to say if you just say what comes natural. And don't be afraid to say, I don't know. I don't know. Let me get with Eric and get back to you. I don't know. Let me get with Jeff. I'll get back to you on that, but that's a good point. I'll make a note and move on.
Yeah.
Take the pressure off, right? And a phrase I've heard a lot lately with what we're going through is there's a new normal.
Right.
Which means things aren't going to change quickly back to the way they were, to your point that you were just saying, Eric. There's going to be a new normal. And one of those things is the design consultation I was talking about. To me, that's huge. I'm paying for it. They're going to take it no matter what, right? Because I'm paying for it. I talked to Lisa. I think it came up in our last class, might have. My staging company that I love is called Set the Stage. They used to be called Key Design. They're called Set the Stage now. And I called Lisa because I haven't done one since we've had this stay at home thing, right? And I talked to her about the virtual walkthrough, because what I can foresee is she's not there, but she's on a call like this, or she's on FaceTime, and the seller is still doing the same walkthrough, room by room, going and showing the houses. And she's saying, hey, show me the closet. Let's go look in the closet. And she's still giving the same commentary and feedback, maybe taking a screenshot on her phone of the rooms instead of taking pictures on the walkthrough. And she used that same phrase. She says, I can't wait to do one of those virtual consultations, because that's probably going to be our new norm, the new normal. Even after all of this, and they can go back into houses, because right now they're not going in occupied houses. They'll stage vacant homes and they'll do builders homes, but they're not going in occupied houses. They're just not going. So I want, through one of us or whatever, I want to give them the opportunity to hone the skill of doing a virtual design consultation. And because she knows that's necessary in today's environment, she's already adopting the belief that that's going to be their new norm. I've taken them clear down to Spanish Fork, from Salt Lake, Spanish Fork, to do a design consultation for me before. Imagine if they didn't have to go. And the new norm is we just do it virtually, and they get the same advice, same written up to-do list, same commentary as they're walking through the house without having to be there. So those are things that, you know, talk about on your listing consult as well, is the new norm.
Love that. That's great.
So does anybody have any questions? Kim, that's a great. Okay, awesome. Anybody else have any questions or clarification things they want to bring up? We're kind of over our time.
I had a quick question.
Go, Angie.
When you're talking about setting your expectation at the end, where you're saying, I'm going to go do my research and then I'll get back to you and you can set up with my design team and all that kind of stuff. Do you set an appointment that you're going to come back, or do you tell them that you're going to get back in touch with them when you're done with your research, or how do you handle that part of it?
You don't always have to go back. So it depends on the location of the property, maybe to where you're at, or the particular seller. But the expectations is you're not going to get back with them until after the design consultation.
Gotcha.
About 5 days from now or whatever. So they're not expecting, hey, God, 2 days have gone by and he hasn't called me back yet. That's enough time to pull comps, right? So it also depends on when they're going to list. If I'm going in April and they're interviewing agents and I'm doing the design consultation, but they're not going to go on the market till July, then I'm pretty much talking them out of me doing the homework to do comps until then. I can give them a rough ballpark, but I'll never really have an in-depth conversation. Because a real important thing, and we haven't even mentioned this, but a real important thing of your listing consultation is the competition that you're listing their house against. Does that make sense? So if they're not on the market till July, it doesn't matter what's on the market right now. It doesn't matter what's under contract, and it doesn't matter what the 6-month-old solds are. It just doesn't. It'll give them a good idea if we were listing today, but I don't need to redo it 3 times along the way. Sometimes I'll say, if that was a true scenario where I'm going to meet with them in April and they're not going to meet until July, I'll say, we'll do the comps in the mid to end of June.
Okay.
I'm going to do that. It's going to be the same result. But when you explain to them, when they list their house, for one, I got to get past the design consultation. We got to be on the same page of what you're going to do, when you're going to get it done by, when I can schedule my photographer, blah, 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 right? So if they're trying to move as fast as possible, it's still in their court to acknowledge what they're going to do based on the design consult and when they're going to have it done. Because for me, because of the way I have my system, and you guys adopt whatever you want, remember I told you I like my listings to go live on Thursday afternoon, early evening. That means I have to take pictures Tuesday preferably, or Wednesday at the latest. That means they have to be done on that Monday or Tuesday, ready for professional pictures. The only exception is if they have some deep cleaning to do. That's not going to really show up in my pictures. But let's say they did their painting, their decluttering, their staging, boxed everything up, got the storage shed, the house looks great. My pictures are going to show pretty darn good if they just need to do some cleaning before we actually start with our showings. But in this case, it's probably virtual showings anyway, right? That's another discussion. That first weekend are usually huge. So have that discussion. And again, it's options, how you might do a virtual open house. Say, I'm not going to invite people in your home, but I'm going to be here. I haven't done this, but I've heard of other agents that are doing Facebook Live open houses. Okay, I've seen a couple examples online too, where they'll go live. Hey, I'm at my open house. Don't come, but if it's something you like, call me. And you know, eliciting a buyer to call them and say, hey, can I go get another look at the basement? Or can you show me the utility room? Can you show me this? Do that virtual walkthrough, right? With buyer as if they were there at the open house. So by offering them solutions like that, again, you want it to be about their safety and their health for sure. So it depends. To answer your question is, for sure, I'm not getting back with them until after the design consult, because Courtney or Lisa is going to send them a copy and me a copy. Now I know exactly what's been suggested, so I can just call them on the phone and hopefully they're up to doing the whole list. It's going to be kind of married together with some of my suggestions, maybe on landscaping or curb appeal or something on the exterior of the house, right? Have a phone call with your consult before, or your designer before they go out. Give them permission to talk about certain things. Are they there just talking about decluttering and staging? Or are they making painting recommendations, color recommendations, lighting fixtures? You know, those dome brass lights switched out for something that's even cheaper, that's, you know, chrome and flat, is going to look a little bit different, a little bit more modern, depending on what they've done with the rest of the house. But little suggestions coming from them that are backing up what you maybe talked about on your walkthrough. See what I'm saying? You're doing your walkthrough, and you're going to have commentary with them, and you're going to give them your opinion, but you're still going to hire the design consult. So if you want them to focus on certain things that normally they maybe would mention, but not put as much attention on, because you're the salesperson, you're the one that's going to market and sell the house. So they're going to present it properly, but you also are in a lot of other houses and have to have input as well. So have a dialogue with them before they go out. And then that's the expectation. Say, once we get the design consult, we'll double back. Depending on when they're going to sell is when you're going to do the other part as far as the comps.
And all the contracts. Do you go back and sit with them and fill out the listing agreement and all that kind of stuff?
I usually do it electronically.
Okay.
What I do is I send them the PDF and an email before I actually send them the electronic one, in case I need to make any changes or a date or I missed something. I'll send them the PDF and do this. They're on their phone, or not necessarily on a Zoom, but they're on their computer looking at the same thing I'm looking at. We don't have to be on a Zoom, right? I was like, okay, see page 1, I'm looking at the same attachment I just sent them. And I go through and I just walk them through the paperwork, answer all their questions, explain everything to them. And usually you've already talked about all the terms before you wrote it up. So now you're just verifying and validating that you put in the right place what you already talked about. So that doesn't take as long.
Yeah.
Hey, Jeff, on the listing agreement, I know you said that sometimes you'll do the design consultation before you leave. Do you ever get a listing agreement, or do you even worry about it? You just pay for it, and then if they decide to go with somebody else, it's kind of don't worry about it? Or has that ever happened? Am I overthinking it?
You're going to get a pretty good feel of who else they're talking to, or where you fit when you leave based on their comments. Either they're totally edifying you and making you feel good because of the things you did that were different, and they're pretty much verbally saying, I look forward to doing this with you. You're going to get some comments based on that walkthrough to know what to do there best. But I'll tell you, 99% of the time, I do the design consult before I do the paperwork.
Okay.
So you got a couple of different options there. Send it to them electronically, get it signed. One thing I don't like about the listing agreement and with Rick and EXP is I used to do an addendum, because I'd do the listing agreement, sign, date, everything, and then I'd do an addendum stating when we're going to list it. After, technically, from the day you sign it, the MLS says the days on the market are supposed to start ticking away, even if you don't put it on the MLS. So you're supposed to do the MLS exclusion form. There's all kinds of crazy things that nobody does. That Rick has said, hey, you can't do it that way. So sometimes I'll have them sign the listing agreement and we just don't date it. We date it the day of the listing, and I don't submit it till the day of the listing. It's just a little workaround. Rick can say whatever he wants about that, but he kind of forces that issue. I'm not going to sign a contract 6 weeks early, and then when I go on the MLS, have to put the days on the market from the day they signed it. that'll hurt them. It has days on the market from when it actually goes on the market. So use your best judgment there. We can talk more about it on a case-by-case basis, but basically the listing agreement says, it refers to the effective date on the last paragraph, section 14 or whatever it is, the last paragraph of the thing says the effective date is the date it's signed below. So
Awesome.
you can figure that out, but.
I've heard you sometimes, Jeff, too, after the design consultation and photographs are done, everything's ready to go. It's ready to go on the market. And you've called the seller and said, hey, I think, well, it's time we put a price on your house and I need to have you, sign some paperwork so I can put it on the market tomorrow. Like it's the last thing you've done sometimes.
Several times. I'm having the conversation. I'm doing the paperwork. I'm having the conversation with them about price on that Wednesday or Thursday, and we're going live Thursday afternoon. I've already got the pictures. I've already done the design consult. They've already done all the work because it's a relationship business, guys. And 99 times out of 100, it's going to serve you if you have the relationship that you're not going to do all that work for them. And they're going to end up saying, you know what, I'm going to go with somebody else. But by the time you get to that point and it's listing time, you're their guy. That's why you've done all that. So if that just doesn't sit with you risk-wise, do the paperwork earlier. But to what Eric just said, a lot of times it's like, hey, what are we going to list at? Where are we going to go to market? I've done that a lot of times. It's like, okay, well, today here's the numbers. Like I said, it's always a range. So when you're having a conversation with them about list price, it's geared with their motivation too. Okay, so for instance, the list, you could go anywhere between 280 and 300. Maybe 280 is the comps, but you can get 300 because of the condition of the property they put it in. So that's even a little bit above the comps. Set the expectations again, have that conversation with them. We're going to go at the top of the market. If for you getting an offer quicker and going under contract quicker because we're going to go out and shopping for your next house is more important than $10,000, $15,000, then the reason to list it lower towards the lower end of that range to be more compelling for more buyers is because you just simply want to go under contract faster. But if you're confident that you can get them that 300, be confident about that because you know the product now that you're putting to market. They got it ready. You've got your pictures. You're ready to go. You're going to get them 300. If it's a $300,000 house and you listed it for 280, don't you agree it's going to get more offers and multiple offers? Because you basically underpriced it based on what you put on the market. And if you're looking at what you're pricing it against the other actives on the market, then you for sure know it's like, I'm at 300. These other pieces of shit at 280, 275 are going to help me sell my house, right? And I literally tell them that when we go to market, the other homes on the market are going to help us sell our house, or we're going to help them sell theirs. It can go only one way or the other. The buyers are pulling them all up. They're making a list. We want to be number one. I want to be able to change that remarks to say multiple offers received.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And
I like that kind of about when you sign the contracts too is whenever I've worked with buyers, I never had them sign a buyer's agreement until I wrote the offer on the house they wanted. We could look at 3 houses or 30 houses. I wouldn't have them sign that contract until writing an offer. And my first broker said, you can't do that. You could waste a ton of time. That you don't have them locked in with anything. And my thought process was always, it's a relationship business. Why would I force somebody to use me that didn't want to use me buying a house because they signed a contract? So Eric, I know we signed a contract, but it's just not working out with the two of us. I'd like to be released from that contract. And I said, no, you're buying a house from me. You signed this contract. Get your car, meet me at the next house. We're buying a house together.
You ain't going nowhere.
Yeah. So I've just never cared. And yeah, there's been a few times when I probably should have had a, house sell or something that didn't work out. But I always felt really good about that it is a relationship business,
To that point, Eric, you have a different relationship with them after showing them 3 houses than you did when you first met them, right? You've walked 3 houses with them. You've had commentary about the house and maybe like you're like Lynn and I, we point out what's wrong with the house. I'm not trying to sell them. I'm trying to get them something in a house that they absolutely love. So I can see things that are going to be brought up in an inspection that didn't come up before because I kept my mouth closed. That's a waste of time. So those buyers have a better relationship with you after showing them those 3 houses without the contract. And if they say, what do you mean you want me to sign something? You want me to sign something, it's like standoffish, right?
Right. Yep. Well, that's all I got, Jeff. I think that was a little bit over time, so I hope you guys enjoyed it and got some good stuff out of it. I
Either
really,
you walked away from your computers, one or the other.
yeah, good point. Yeah, but I just really appreciate, just learning and getting better all the time. And it's fun to get better and then making it easier at the same time, which is what some of the pivots and adjustments have done for me. So
For sure.
thanks for the interview, Jeff. I appreciate it.
Anytime, buddy. Okay, we're here for you guys. Reach out to us if you have any other questions as you start thinking about this stuff. You might think of some things later. So shoot us a text, call us, whatever.
Thanks, that was awesome.
Have a good night, guys.
Good night, everyone.
Hi, Troy.
Thanks, Kim.
You bet. Have a good
It was
night.
excellent. Thanks.
There's Troy.
Hey, buddy. Yeah, I didn't see you there before. Gotta say hey before I say goodbye.
You're awesome, man. Thanks so much. It was great.
Hey, see you guys. Have a great night.
Yeah, bye.